Sophie, I want to share something with the audience today that I think is going to surprise a lot of them, especially the ones who feel like their English has stopped growing.
Okay, tell us.
When you reach B2 level, something happens inside your brain that almost no one explains. Your brain quietly draws a circle around about 1,000 words, the most common, easiest, most reliable English words you know. And then it builds a kind of invisible wall around that circle.
A wall.
A wall. Inside the circle, your English flows, the words are easy, the retrieval is fast, the brain is comfortable. And outside the circle, there are thousands of other words you actually know, words you have studied, words you have read, words you have understood many times.
But your brain doesn't want to use them.
Your brain actively avoids them, not because they are hard, but because they cost more energy to retrieve. Words inside the safe circle are cheap to access. Words outside the safe circle are expensive. And the brain, like all biological systems, prefers cheap.
So, this is why advanced learners feel like their English has plateaued, their vocabulary stops growing in speech, their sentences sound similar, their personality feels flat. They reach for the same 100 words again and again, even though they know much more.
And here's the part that learners don't realize. This is not a problem of memory. The words outside the safe circle have not been forgotten. They are still there, stored, available, recognizable when you hear them. But the brain is actively choosing not to use them because using them costs energy, and the brain is an energy-saving machine.
So, the learner ends up sounding much less sophisticated in speech than their actual English level. Their vocabulary in their head is large, their vocabulary in their mouth is small, and the gap between these two things is the entire story of why B2 fluency feels stuck.
And today we are going to expose this completely. We are going to explain the energy cost science behind why your brain locks you in the safe circle. We are going to show you how to map your own safe circle so you can see it clearly. And we are going to give you the forced discomfort protocol, the specific practice that pushes your brain past the wall so that the vocabulary you already know in your head finally starts to live in your mouth.
Welcome to Side by Side English Podcasts. I'm Sophie.
I'm Mark. Today is for the B2 or C1 learner who feels like their vocabulary has frozen, who keeps reaching for the same words, who knows they know more but never seems to use it. We are going to show you the wall your brain has built and how to climb over it.
Stay with us. We have the safe circle concept explained in full, the energy cost science behind it, how to map your own personal safe circle, the forced discomfort protocol, step by step, a role play showing the same person locked in their safe circle versus stretching past it, and a word tour with 6 powerful B2 to C1 words.
Quick comment question before we begin. Be honest, do you feel like you keep using the same words in English over and over? Drop a yes or no. We want to see how many learners are stuck in the safe circle. Okay, let's break the wall.
So, Mark, let's start with the science. Why does the brain build the safe circle in the first place?
Okay, so this comes down to one of the most fundamental principles of how the brain operates. The brain is a metabolic system. It runs on energy, specifically on glucose, and it operates by the principle of least effort, always choosing the path that costs the least energy to achieve the necessary result.
And accessing words from memory has a measurable cost.
A measurable, real caloric cost. Every time you retrieve a word, your brain does work. It activates neural pathways, it expends energy, and different words cost different amounts. The words you use most often have the strongest, most well-trodden pathways. They are cheap to access. The words you use rarely have weaker pathways. They are expensive to access. And the very expensive words, the ones you've studied but never actually used in speech, can be many times more expensive than the cheap ones.
And the brain notices this, tracks it, optimizes around it, without you ever consciously deciding.
Exactly. The brain, every time you speak, runs a kind of cost-benefit analysis. It looks at the meaning you want to express, it checks the available words that could express that meaning, and it picks the cheapest one that gets the job done. Always.
So, if you want to say something positive about a meal, the brain has many options: good, great, excellent, outstanding, delightful, superb, marvelous. All of them communicate the meaning, but the cheapest one to retrieve, the one with the strongest pathway, is probably good, so that is what comes out every time, even though the brain knows all the others.
And over time, this becomes a habit. The cheap words get used more, which strengthens their pathways, which makes them even cheaper, while the expensive words get used less, which weakens their pathways, which makes them even more expensive. The safe circle gets stronger, the wall gets higher.
And the learner doesn't notice because the brain is making these choices silently, beneath conscious awareness. They just experience the result. Their English sounds simpler than it should, their vocabulary feels stuck, their speech feels boring, and they don't understand why.
The why is this. Your brain has trapped you in your own efficiency. The very system that allowed you to communicate at all, the system that chose cheap words to get you to B2 fast, is now the same system holding you back at B2 because it keeps choosing cheap, even when cheap is no longer what you need.
And here's the key insight that today's episode rests on. The only way to grow past the safe circle is to deliberately, consciously, willingly choose expensive words, to force discomfort into your speech, to reach for the harder option even when the brain is suggesting the easier one. Because the only way to strengthen the pathways of expensive words is to use them, and the brain will never use them on its own.
It will always choose the cheap option, forever, unless you intervene.
So, intervention is the entire game, and today we're going to show you how to do it strategically.
First, let's help learners actually see their own safe circle, because most people can't even tell which words are in their circle, which is part of why they feel stuck. They can't see the cage they're in.
Yes, let's give them the mapping exercise.
Okay, the map. For 3 days, pay attention to your own English speech, out loud or in your head, and notice the words that come out most often, the verbs you use to describe action, the adjectives you use to describe feelings, the connectors you use between ideas.
Write them down. After 3 days, you'll have a list of about 30 to 50 words. These are the core of your safe circle, the words your brain reaches for as defaults.
And once you see this list, something profound happens. You realize how few words your daily speech actually relies on. You will see on paper that your speaking vocabulary is much smaller than you thought, that you have been using the same 40 words in different combinations for months, maybe years.
And the realization can be uncomfortable because most learners think their speaking vocabulary is much wider than it is. The safe circle creates an illusion. From the inside, it feels like you have plenty of words. From the outside, looking at the list, you see the truth.
And once you see the truth, the work becomes obvious. You don't need to learn new words. You need to start using the words you already know but never reach for. Words you can identify by simply listing the categories where you keep using the same defaults: tired, good, important, difficult, big, and replacing those defaults with the upgrades your brain already has in storage.
Which brings us to the protocol, the forced discomfort protocol, the practice that systematically pushes your speech past the wall.
Yes, 3 steps. Let's walk through them.
Step 1. Identify 3 default words you want to retire.
Pick 3 words from your safe circle map that you use the most. Words like good, like very, like tired, whatever your most overused words are. And for each one, prepare 3 replacement words. Better versions, more precise, more flavorful.
And these replacements should be words you actually know but rarely use. Tired becomes exhausted, drained, wiped out. Good becomes excellent, lovely, brilliant. Very becomes completely, deeply, incredibly. Whatever upgrades fit your current vocabulary and storage.
Step 2. Force the upgrade every single time the default would have come out.
This is the hardest part. For 1 full week, every single time you feel one of your 3 default words about to come out, you stop. You consciously override the default and you reach for one of the upgrade words instead, every time. No exceptions.
And the brain will protest strongly because you are deliberately choosing expensive over cheap, which goes against everything the brain is trying to do. So the override will feel uncomfortable, the speech will feel slower, you will feel awkward.
And that is the work. The discomfort is the training. The brain is being forced to strengthen the pathways of the expensive words, and the only way to strengthen them is to use them under the energy cost. Every override is a small reinforcement of the new pathway, until eventually the upgrade words become as cheap to access as the defaults used to be.
Step 3. Rotate to new words after 1 week.
After 1 week of forcing 3 specific upgrades, the 3 new words have started to integrate. They have become more accessible. You may not notice yet, but the pathways are stronger. So you keep using them, but you also pick 3 new defaults to retire and 3 new upgrades to force.
And so, week by week, your safe circle expands. 12 words a month, maybe more. New pathways being strengthened deliberately. The old wall slowly pushed outward. The vocabulary in your head and the vocabulary in your mouth slowly becoming the same vocabulary.
3 steps: identify, force, rotate. Combined, they form the most effective protocol for breaking out of the safe circle. And the entire key, is the willingness to be uncomfortable, to choose expensive over cheap, to trust that the discomfort now produces freedom later.
And the timeline is faster than learners expect because the words you are forcing into your speech are not new words. They are familiar words, already in storage, already understood. They just have weak pathways, and weak pathways strengthen quickly once they get used.
Within a month of consistent forced discomfort practice, learners typically have replaced 30 or 40 of their most common defaults with richer alternatives, which transforms how their English sounds without any new vocabulary study at all.
Okay, let's do a role play. Sophie, set the scene. Actually, I'll set it. Sophie, you play the same person twice, same situation. First, locked in the safe circle, then after a few weeks of forced discomfort practice.
Perfect. Set it up.
Okay, someone asks you, how was your trip to Italy last month?
Version 1. Locked in the safe circle. Oh, my trip was really good. The food was very good. The weather was nice. We went to a lot of cities, which was nice. We were very tired at the end, but it was a good trip. I had a good time.
And listen to that. 6 sentences, and let me count. Good appears 3 times, nice twice, very twice. The total vocabulary is maybe 12 different content words. The whole answer is built out of the safe circle, and yet this person almost certainly has hundreds of better words in storage. They just couldn't reach them in real time.
Now version 2. Same person, same trip, but after a few weeks of forced discomfort protocol. Oh, the trip was incredible. Honestly, one of the best I've taken in years. The food was unreal. I mean, every meal felt like a small event. The weather mostly cooperated, which was lucky. We visited 5 different cities, which was probably one too many because we ended up completely exhausted by the last day. But honestly, I'd do the whole thing again tomorrow.
And listen to the transformation. Same person, same trip, same vocabulary and storage, but now the safe circle defaults have been overridden. Good became incredible. Very good food became unreal. Every meal felt like a small event. Nice weather became the weather mostly cooperated. Very tired became completely exhausted.
And the personality came through. The story came alive. The English became something worth listening to, without a single new word being learned. Because all the upgrades were already in the speaker's storage, they just hadn't been allowed out of the safe circle yet.
And anyone listening to version 2 walks away thinking, wow, your English is excellent, when in truth, your English is identical to version 1. Only the choices changed. The brain was finally allowed to reach past the wall.
Same brain, same vocabulary, 2 completely different impressions created by the willingness to be uncomfortable, to choose expensive over cheap, to override the safe circle deliberately.
Word tour?
Word tour. First word, metabolic. Metabolic refers to the chemical processes in living things that produce and use energy. Your brain is a metabolic organ, just like your muscles, and every cognitive task it performs has a metabolic cost.
For example, the safe circle exists because every word retrieval has a metabolic cost, and your brain naturally chooses the cheapest options available. Repeat, metabolic.
Metabolic.
Next, pathway. A pathway is a route, a track, a way through something. In neuroscience, neural pathways are the routes information takes through your brain. Strong pathways are fast and cheap. Weak pathways are slow and expensive.
For example, every time you use a word, you strengthen its pathway in your brain, which makes it cheaper and faster to retrieve next time. Repeat, pathway.
Pathway. Next, default. We've used this word in earlier episodes. It captures perfectly the words your brain reaches for automatically, without your conscious choice. Your defaults are the inhabitants of your safe circle.
For example, the work of expanding your speaking vocabulary is the work of replacing your current defaults with better defaults. Repeat, default.
Default. Next, to override. To override means to take control of something automatic and replace it with a deliberate choice. The forced discomfort protocol is essentially a structured override of your brain's energy-saving instincts.
For example, learning to override the brain's default vocabulary choices is one of the most powerful skills a B2 learner can develop. Repeat, override.
Override. Next, to reinforce. To reinforce something means to strengthen it through repetition. We strengthen muscles through use, we strengthen neural pathways through use, and we expand our speaking vocabulary by deliberately reinforcing pathways that were previously weak.
For example, every time you choose an upgrade word over a default word, you reinforce the new pathway and weaken the old one. Repeat, reinforce.
Reinforce. And finally, atrophy. Atrophy means to weaken or shrink through lack of use. Muscles atrophy when you don't use them, skills atrophy, and neural pathways atrophy. Words you never use in speech slowly atrophy in your active vocabulary, even though you still recognize them when you hear them.
For example, the words you never reach for in speech slowly atrophy in your active vocabulary, even while they remain fully alive in your passive recognition. Repeat, atrophy.
Atrophy.
6 words today: metabolic, pathway, default, override, reinforce, and atrophy. Every one of these is a real, useful, modern English word that captures something specific about how your brain manages skill and effort.
And every one of them is a word that maps directly to the central insights of today's episode. Sophie, one final takeaway for everyone watching.
That your English is not stuck because of what you don't know. It is stuck because of what you don't reach for. Your brain has built a safe circle of about 1,000 cheap words, and inside that circle, it can communicate. But the brain has no internal motivation to expand past the wall because expansion costs energy, and the brain is designed to conserve energy.
So, the responsibility for expansion is yours, not the brain's. You have to choose expensive over cheap. You have to be willing to make your speech feel slightly slower, slightly more effortful, slightly less comfortable in exchange for a much richer English in the long run. The discomfort is the path. There is no path without discomfort.
And the version of you who currently sounds limited and repetitive in English is not your real level. That version is the version trapped inside the wall. Once you start the forced discomfort protocol, the version with sophisticated vocabulary that already lives inside your head starts to come out because you finally gave it permission, and the brain finally got the signal that the cheap option is no longer acceptable.
Small challenge before we go. For the next 7 days, identify 3 of your most overused default words. Just 3. Pick the obvious ones. Good, nice, very, whatever fits your patterns. And for each one, pick 3 upgrades from words you already know but rarely use.
And then for 7 days, force the upgrade every single time the default tries to come out loud, in conversation, in your inner narration, in voice notes. Every time the brain wants cheap, you override and choose expensive. Just for those 3 words, just for 7 days.
And notice what happens. Notice how uncomfortable the first 3 days feel. Notice how the brain protests. Notice how by day 5 or 6, the new words start to come more easily. By day 7, they may even feel slightly automatic. That is your safe circle expanding in real time.
Drop a comment after the week. Tell us which 3 defaults you retired. Tell us which upgrades you forced. Tell us what changed in your real conversations. We want to see your wall pushed outward.
Because the moment a learner realizes they can deliberately expand their safe circle, they realize they have power over their own fluency, power they didn't know they had. And once they have it, every week becomes a chance to expand again until the vocabulary in their head and the vocabulary in their mouth finally match.
I'm Sophie.
I'm Mark. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being willing to be slightly uncomfortable in service of a much bigger English.
Forced to upgrade, expand the circle. We'll see you in the next one.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.